If you're not manifesting yourself, somebody's manifesting for you.
Yeah.
And now you might not like the situation that you find yourself in. Like, we talk a lot about all this AI and technology and what's going on, but it is because someone has created that to monetize and make money, and you're being replaced. So we got to get people back to dreaming so that they can constantly create value, not only for themselves, but for the world. So,
and you around people that's going through that, man, be the David Goggins in their life.
This is about the playground for your dreams, because it's not something that you can give up. Welcome to another episode of Manifest House. This one is special because we needed to have it. We've given you guys a lot of episodes, but this one is just my brother 19 Keys and I.
Yeah.
It's time for us to talk.
Big Keys and Keenan.
Come on. It's time for us to get into it. So, Keys, one of the things that's been on my heart that's amazing about this is how we met. Totally random, right?
Yeah.
Out in Miami to build, a brotherhood over the years.
I just recently ran across that picture. Actually, I got to show you.
I need to see that. We're gonna put that one up. That's a throwback.
Some people out.
We could do that.
What's the word of unmanifest? What's the opposite of manifest? Relinquish, vanquish.
Yeah, I think it's vanquish. Yeah, I think on that one. Yeah, we just forget. You know what I mean? But as I was sitting there, I was thinking, you've always tried to pull stuff out of me, right? You've tried to pull information out of me. Yeah, pause. Information out of me, etc. But I've always told you there's so much that you're teaching me. And one of the things I was always hesitant to do was a lot of the podcasts, a lot of the media, a lot of just open sharing. One, just because of how corporate at times I've had to be, or having investors, etc. I have a public persona, but between you and the Metchi and your whole team, you guys have really been, getting me to open up a lot more. And what I thought was really interesting, though, was we talked about putting together Manifest House a couple years ago. And just life happened. We had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of businesses being built. You did a whole tour in between that. But I think it was really cool that we manifested this moment back then, 2 years ago. And it created a sense of openness. And I think the episodes gave us exactly what we hoped for, where people were really sharing their dreams. And I think we've continued that. So I'm hoping today we can get into a little bit of what our dreams are and what we are manifesting. Since we've gotten a chance to learn from some really great guests on how they manifest, but I think they all had little pieces of ourselves in them that we could relate to, which I thought was really cool. So anyway, that's what I want to get into today. But you tell me, what are you hoping for?
I've had a good journey with this, because to be honest, 99% of the guests I didn't know existed before we interviewed them.
Indeed.
But now I'm grateful that I do, because every time we sat down, it was an experience. Whether somebody is, I was talking in the back with you about this, about, some people, they tell their story and they teach you at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I'm often interested in the topics of information that people know versus who they are.
Yeah.
Right? Unless you can tell who you are in a way where you're teaching me at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. And so some guests can tell you a story about their life, and then you're learning at the same time about rules and environments and different conditions. And that's what I love, whether it's about funding or whether, hearing stories about, your mother kidnapping you and the rules of how it works in Australia. And it's just this interesting background of things. And even, hearing about a person manifesting their life to where they go from corporate, right? Which is funny, as you was talking, I was just thinking about that when people say, I'm so corporate, but corporate is body, right? So when a person thinks that you're thinking very physical, basically, and it limits you from being in this spiritual space where there's not always the defined rules, and you're saying things outside this box, right? So for me, being able to merge these spaces, right, of spiritual and corporation, right, and corporate, I think is the key for me. And I think that's what this Manifest House is. It's being able to merge these different elements together to where everything don't have to be so cookie cutter, put in a box. I have to say it like this for this, that, and the third. And it's like, no, how about your life is monetizable? Your spirit is monetizable, and you can build your life off the journey of your sincerity, not how you have to package it.
Yeah, well, when I say corporate, right, it's because you have to represent the organization,
the body,
right, and not yourself. Where I think a lot of us who have been corporate, you're very trained in that, right, to protect. Right, we say that with NFL players, right, protect the shield, right, like they say things like that because you represent these organizations, and I think for a lot of us, right, to properly manifest, right, is you have to forget about the organization and what do you want,
right,
and a lot of us don't really know what we want individually, right? We've taken, we believe so heavily into the culture of whatever it is that we're a part of, the system that we're in, that we forget to do for self, and I think that was to me why I know I agreed to do it and why I wanted to do it with you, and why I was very open with it was because we both shared the sense of we need a safe space for folks to be honest and to dream. But at the same time, we weren't interested in the gossip, the drama, and the bullshit that we're seeing in a lot of other platforms, right? And again, this is no hate, no shade. Folks, do what you do, but I think we're all looking for something that's going to fill our cup.
Meaningful.
Yeah.
Meaningful content. This is the era of meaningful content. So context to that, right? And this is something that everybody needs to be mindful. I know you're going to take a page out of our book anyway, so I might as well hand it to you, right? Even when we see what corporations, when people say, and I want to take the stigma out of corporation, you're a corporation.
Absolutely.
Right? Your name is your company. You feel me? And the structure and the values that you put behind the brand and your name is what you want to represent. And sometimes we want to outgrow those things, or sometimes you don't want to always represent this business. You're more in your personal. So when you can be corporate, just representing yourself, how you've incorporated who you are. So I wanted to kind of put that out there
100%.
Because it doesn't always mean some mega institution, right? It's the institution of self. Meaningful content. That is the era we in because corporations are now looking at all this AI out there, right? And they're saying, wait a minute. We don't want our platforms over flooded with these automated bots, right? And this short form content is so easy for you to type in a prompt, create an automated bot. We got in trouble for taking our own content on YouTube. They demonetized us and said, wait a minute, none of your content is creative. You're just taking from this page. The page happened to be high level conversations, but they was basically saying you're using automated tools in your services. And now I have to send a video to prove that I'm taking from myself.
Yeah.
Right. But I get it. And what they're doing is they're trying to make sure that their platform is not flooded with all of this automated content by artificial intelligence, which is going to decrease the average user from being on there because they're just throwing stuff on there.
Yeah.
They want original content. They want meaningful content. Yeah. They don't want stuff that's just getting to where it's gossipy and all it is. Because it's not going to drive the user retention.
Yeah.
So even from a strategic standpoint and where we're going in society, we've reached our tipping point with the drama, with the gossip, right? And now we want something of real value and meaning. So for people to create things that are really engaging, storytelling, that aren't made by a bot, and you can tell it's human centric, right? That's a value that you participate in. And like sitting down with these kind of conversations, I always try to give a brilliant intro because I want it to be something the bot can never come up with. I want it to be something where it's like, that's pure human essence, spirit, high level intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, you can train the bot and they go try to sound similar to the high levelness of 19 Keys. You feel me? But that bot might trying to crash, trying to keep up with this vernacular excellence.
Well, I think, what's happening with these bots, with algorithms, right? You lose the flexibility of the moment, right? It's pattern recognition, right? And it's kind of what happens historically over time when we think, our trauma now is baked into the algorithm. So it's like we're seeing more and more clickbait, drama-filled bullshit because it at one point got so much engagement that the algorithm is saying that I need to give you more of that because that's what you engage with. And I think what, to me, why this platform has been so special for us is you actually have to work harder to dream now. Because if you're really lazy, you're just going to take in what the algorithm, what the bots are just going to give you. And you can be inundated with so much now, right? There's so much content, right? There's so many distractions, right? There's not a lot of time, right? As the sister Debbie was talking about, right? Like it's hard to be still and be within your thoughts now because there's so much for us to do. That's why people were going crazy during the pandemic. They had never sat still. They had never looked at their partners. They never had conversations with their families. There was a lot of, suicides that people don't like talking about in those because people they had never looked inside themselves. And when they had that stillness, they didn't like it. They didn't like who they were, right? And they dealt with that in the way that they did. But I think it is important for us to actively dream, actively, imagine, actively seek out these sources of inspiration, because if you sit back, it's just killing our souls, man. It's killing it. So it's like, we got to replenish. To me, this whole platform, right, that we're building is about us filling the cup, right? Replenishing the soul.
Yeah.
Like, let's get back to dreaming.
I think it was something that Debbie said actually as well that sparked the thought, because she talked about how she was reaching these levels and metrics of success, but the connection of fulfillment wasn't there, right? And what happens is that when you don't have alignment, right, and you have accomplishment, right, it doesn't equal out to fulfillment. So it has to be aligned. Your accomplishments have to be in line with your value system. Yeah. And when you do that, now everything you do is meaningful, it's purposeful. So now it feels like, yo, I'm really getting things done, versus somebody tell you to do something, you get that task done, but who cares? It's not connected to who you are, what you feel like you engaged on this planet to do. And I feel like that's where we're headed to. I really like this concept of New Earth, because it really just speaks to this next phase of where are we going in this shift, right? Human beings are constantly caught in these cycles, but it's like, do we get to break the cycles, right? And the way you break the cycle is to study the cycle to come and say, I want to add something different. Yeah, I know this is where things are going. And so it's like, I want people to really feel fulfilled about their life. And that's not going to happen until they're really connected with their gifts, their skills, their talents, right? And their purpose, and their life is customized in that way to where the things you manifest, right? Because your body is your house. This is your manifest house, right? Yeah. Your mind is your manifest house. But what you manifest, when it's really connected to knowledge of self and self-awareness, ooh, it feels good.
And it's like, it has to take place, because if you're not manifesting yourself, somebody's manifesting for you.
Yeah.
And now you might not like the situation that you find yourself in. Like, we talk a lot about all this AI and technology and what's going on, but it is because someone has created that to monetize and make money, and you're being replaced. So we got to get people back to dreaming so that they can constantly create value, not only for themselves, but for the world, right? Like, we have to justify almost now our existence because of where technology is pushing.
Come on with it. I'm just giving you testimonial.
He hyping up.
Come on.
Talk that talk.
No, what you're saying is extremely rare and valuable, because you're dropping gems and they already cut. So when people understand how precious this moment in time is, you got to really listen. So I want to make sure I get testimonial when I hear value. Because here's the thing. We are in this era where your job doesn't mean, I ain't say don't mean nothing, but most of the time, 99% don't mean nothing. Because you've decided to connect, right, your value to the thing that you do. Yep. And when the thing you do is replaced by a tool, you realize that you were a tool that were replaceable.
Yep.
And so now it's like, wait a minute. See, you don't fear things when you have a deep understanding about them.
Yeah.
When you have a deep intrinsic understanding about it, there's nothing to fear. It's like a graphic designer fearing Adobe Photoshop. Right? Oh man, I can't draw these things out no more and stencil them and nobody gonna come to me. And it's like, no, learn Adobe Photoshop. Yeah. You're actually gonna have a much larger, massive client base, right, that you can work with. And a person that is connected to who they are, see technology as a tool, not a replacement.
Yeah.
Right? You just replace a part of the flow in which I get things done. So now I should have such a big vision and a large purpose that tools cannot replace my purpose, right? The tool just replaces some of the work in my flow of execution. Because when you are a tool for someone else's execution, of course, they're looking for more proficient tools to replace you to be more effective.
Of course. That you might not remember, but we had a podcast, man. This was a couple years ago. And I said, you asked me why I quit corporate. Right. And I was like, it wasn't because I was doing bad. It wasn't like, I was a very young executive, right? I was promoted, all these accolades. And I said this line to you where I wanted to see if I was good because I knew the machine was good. And I needed to understand that difference. Why this is so important is like, I need people to understand how good they are.
Hold on, you gotta say it again. You knew you was good, but you had to, I really love that line when the first time you said it.
No, I knew the machine was good.
You had to
I
make
needed
sure
to
you
see
was
if I
good.
was good, right? Because when you're at some of these companies and these corporations in these systems, that have been developed and refined over time, and they have scaled, they've been around, they are really good.
You about to hurt some feelings. Go ahead.
No, but you have to separate yourself to test yourself because if not, you are dependent on that system.
And you realize you're just a chain link in the system.
Well, you're very vulnerable, right? So, for those of us that are parents, right? And we have responsibilities, you don't want to have that level of dependency on anything. You need to make sure you have skills. You need to make sure that you can survive. Right. We get down to basic principles like, do you know how to grow food? Do you know how to hunt? Right. Do you know how to sustain yourself? Do you know how to protect your family? Or are you dependent on the city, on others to do all of these things? You're very vulnerable at that state.
See, that's that masculine manifestation.
Yeah, but I think it is at a human level, right? The dependency on systems is very dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think we're at a point now in society where there's this kind of revolution brewing. Because people realize that we have become so dependent on the systems, whether that is the government, right? Whether that is the corporations. And then we're seeing glimmers of things disrupting that. So now you're seeing, you thought you had a great job.
Right.
You thought you were going to retire there and then you get laid off. You get replaced.
You thought you can use TikTok.
Yeah. And they might get rid of it.
It might get bad.
Right. So all of these things. So it's like now we're in the era where you have to really look inside and see like, what do you have? So in order to do that, you got to figure out what do you want?
Right.
First, so then you know what to then develop.
Right.
You have to then acknowledge maybe where you have some shortcomings and you got to test and challenge yourself. So this is the era where like, yes, we got all this convenience and all this shit that people are bringing. You can order food and get whatever you want on demand and blah, blah. You can't be lazy right now.
Right.
If you lazy, you in trouble.
Because we talked about this before, experts and masters.
Yeah.
Right. I am, and it's something that I've had a struggle with, is proclaiming my expertise. Right. And now it's such a logical thing. And I've gotten some tenure in the game to where I feel confident about claiming my expertise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. In these different categories and subjects, which I find monumentally important.
Yeah.
I feel like the world makes us insecure if you don't have a degree in the subject that you can't proclaim your expertise in that subject. Right. And so now it's like, whether it's technology, whether it's the financial sector, whether it's marketing or branding, whether it's communication, whether it's leadership, right? Whether it's content, influencing, there is so many different areas where this is the age of the polymath.
Yeah.
Right. If you're just one niche, of course you can easily be replaced. The whole thing about the sentience of the artificial intelligence is that they become general intelligence to where they can do multiple things, not one. Right. But when you have this one thing, I have an analytical skill set of accounting. I know the system and flow of it. Okay. Machine learns to do that. Now what do I do? So none of the creative essence of who you are can kick in and now operate. Hey, you know how to do this. Why don't you create a software as a service? Because you have experience on what people need. So you can probably create a better flow than a coder that just knows how to stitch these things together.
But see, that's where it all starts though, right there, right? Is like, how do you create then the value, right? What do you do? What can't the machine do? Well, the machine's not curious. Right. So the curiosity is something that we have. The creativity is something that we as humans have. So I think what this is the age of the creator economy, as we've talked about before, because we have to dream, we have to create, we have to be curious, because that's how you're going to get the most out of these systems and tools. These machines, AI, it's a tool.
Right.
So what are you?
Right.
Don't just be a tool. And
Right.
I think what's happened is we've gotten comfortable in some of these machines where we've become a part of the machine, right? We forgot our own curiosity, right? So you can sit there and you can work some of these jobs, but a lot of people don't even understand how the job or the company works. I'm like, so you sitting there, and I had a friend of mine, man, I'm not going to name his name. So I'm gonna let him live on this one. But you know, he was a well-paid executive. You know, at that point he was a vice president. And I said, how's the company make money? Like, are you guys doing well in this time period? He's like, oh, I don't really know. I said, well, you know, it's a public company. You read the earning reports. Like, what are you looking at? What's the strategy? What's your role? Man, I don't know, but we're doing pretty good in my division. I said, man, you sound super vulnerable right now. Like, you got 3 kids. You might want to understand, like,
Right.
are you on the chopping block? So he wasn't even curious, right? And I think what happens in some of the cultures that are created in these corporations, they are designed for the machine to work well, but it's also designed for you to have less and less confidence because they need you to be dependent on it. They need you to buy in to the system. And I think too many of us are buying into these systems and we're losing our confidence. And to me, when you start to dream and you start to go for things, you're actually finding your confidence again, right? Because you're outside of the model, right? Outside of the machine or the matrix. And I think we have to work really, really hard right now to do that, because insecurity's running rampant.
I think that comes with diversification.
Yes.
Because the more diversified you are, right, the less dependent you are on one source or one system.
Yeah.
Right. Ray Dalio talks about that a lot, you know, where, you know, let's just say this current financial economy, gold is at the highest that it's ever been.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is at the highest it's ever been. The stock market is at the highest it's ever been. Yeah. Right. But then there are markets that are down, right? Bond market is terrible. It's a shambles. You know what I mean? Credit markets are crazy. Housing markets are crazy. So if you're one person that's dependent on one market and then it's down, now you're not doing so good. And then you was like, well, you know, that market is for the crypto guys. That market is for people who care about gold. And it's like, no, those markets are for everybody, because every single corporation, you look at BlackRock, look at the strategy of the people who own the world, right? And then what do? They all diversify because they know the world has flows. They know the world has cycles and shifts. So it's the same thing with your creative palette, with your creative portfolio and diversity in self. Sometimes you can't depend on your ability to speak. Sometimes you might have to depend on your network. Sometimes you have to depend on your investments. Sometimes you have to depend on the projects you created. Sometimes you have to depend on different aspects of self that will be of higher value at different cycles in time.
Got to develop all the tools.
Yeah, diversify.
Absolutely. We got to think broadly, right? And again, that's where we have to stay curious. We can't get, if what we're seeing today is very indicative of life to me, which is everything will be disrupted at one point. So can you pivot?
Right.
Can you adjust? Right.
And even before you even, like, I like what Mont Brown was talking about, because Mont Brown, he's an A&R, right? But he, during a moment where his career is flowing and is well, he decided to push out a shoe.
Absolutely.
Because what you can do is you can leverage the momentum you have of your success to add in a pivot, where pivots don't have to be reactionary, right? And I think that that's what most people think, like, oh, I'm a pivot if things get, no. How about you add in something now that can be a branch, right, of the thing that you're building, so you can use the momentum so that it's not always a desperate reaction.
Absolutely. And that happens when you have such a deep level of understanding, right? When you get to that expert level and you have that mastery, you start to see the evolution sometimes early. Yeah. You can identify it, right? You can identify the signs. You can put yourself in places to win constantly. And I think that's what we all have to do. We can't be complacent. Right. I think that's what all of this is about, right? When we talk about the playground for our dreams, right? That's shaking the complacency that sometimes is plaguing society right now, where people have gotten so comfortable, right, that they're vulnerable. Yeah. And it's like, be ready. Right. Get back to dreaming. Start planning, right? Make sure you're taking care of your family. because everything around us is changing, and it's changing rapidly.
Yeah. And I don't believe in one hit wonders.
No.
I believe that if you can make one hit, you can make a million, right? Well, Rodney was talking about when he first raised that money the first time, right? And then he, was no longer a part of his own company that he built up to a status to where the average black man wasn't able to raise millions of dollars for anything. And he did that. Then he had to go back in the darkness and the shadows and figure out how to do it again. It was because he had a system of self-belief that, wait a minute, it's not about the one hit, it's about the wonder.
Yeah.
If I created a wonder, then I can do it again because I'm the manifester of that wonder, right? So that means that I'm the person that was able to do it. Let me step back into that energy and create more wonders.
That's it. And that was similar to actually how, when I think about Mike Rashid, right? Shout out to Mike, man. It's his birthday today.
Yeah.
So we're going to celebrate with him tomorrow. But, it was the idea that he has this deep understanding of himself as well, right?
Yeah.
Like there's this mastery of one's self. So again, for a lot of us, like do that deep work, because Rodney, as he was talking about, wonder and his skill sets, it was because he was very clear on his strengths. Like he had such a mastery of himself, right? And I think about a lot of the guests, they had this deep level of understanding of themselves. And I think, again, that's what Debbie was talking about, right? Like, are you sitting in those moments where you are thinking and processing and getting to understand and getting in touch with yourself and the universe and the creator, right? Do you have that? And I just think that stuff is beautiful, man.
Yeah, I think that's important. Being able to, like, I know, I think about what will my life be in 20 years? I think 10 years is too small of a frame to, as a futurist, you want to think 20 years out, right? Or at least more than 10 years, right?
Stretch yourself.
They have a cosmic cycle that happens every 11 years, right? So they measure solar activity in 11-year cycles. So this is why 10-year cycles are not big enough as well, right? Because, and this is why, being in flow and tune and having understanding of things outside of your expertise is important, right? I would have never thought to study the stars and the cosmos because you would be like, no, I need to study just this thing. And no, there are other factors that connect into our human experience.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad this thing is called Manifest House, because it automatically puts it into a higher factor of thinking.
And that's why, man, it's interesting because this now takes me to the education system and why I think we're ripe for disruption, right? Because the current American education system, right, we're testing kids at very early ages. I mean, I got a 2.5-year-old daughter who had to prep for an interview for school.
That's
like
ridiculous.
This is kind of crazy.
I'm gonna tell you, that's crazy.
And somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, we have tutors for that. Where
I
you
see
can get
why
ready."
Kanye West is mad.
Yeah, for preschool. I'm like,
that's crazy.
Nah, my daughter's not doing that. We're okay. But it's this idea that we've been training people for a system that now is being disrupted. What you really are trying to do, and I love what they're doing in Asia, specifically in Japan. I love what they do in the Nordic countries, where they're really trying to develop curiosity in children. And I think for us as adults, we're fighting to protect that inner child. Like we want to stay curious, right? We want to continue to create. We want to continue to play. What happens as we get older, like you don't play anymore. You work out. What did you do as a kid? You didn't work out. You played.
Right.
Like, let's get back. That's why, playground for our dreams. Like, let's get back to that sense of childhood, because there were so many things about us younger that we've lost over time. We've stopped dreaming. We've stopped playing. We've stopped creating, right? We're kind of in the shuffle, and we got to shake out of that shuffle and find our greatness. And that's what we're doing here. That's when, I listened to brothers like Style when he was talking about how his career has evolved over time. He's not talking about working out. He's riding his bike to you know what I mean? Like he's playing, he's like tapped into that inner sense of wonder, right? Where he appreciates things. Like there's no ego in that. That's what we got to start doing, man.
Yeah.
I thought how he was moving through life. I'm like, yeah, I like that. I like that.
I like that conversation about playing. Of course you can play too much. You know what I'm saying? There's the balance of life, right? Because if you can't maintain, well, you can say child, let's just say creative.
Yeah.
right? If we replace the word child with creative, you kind of get it.
Yeah.
Because in your wonder years, you are just your creative years.
So,
you question everything. You're figuring out different ways to do things. You're playing, you're drawing, you're full creative energy as a child.
yeah.
And then what we do is we take that and we shape that into what we believe that energy should be manifested into.
Yeah.
And sometimes that energy decides to go against that which you're trying to become, because naturally that energy has a shape. Naturally, if you look at we're 50% of our mother and father and 25% of our grandparent, mother and father, and then another 13.5% of them, and it keeps going back. So we're not one thing. We're all these experiences of our ancestors, right, culminated into one. And if we were to study our past selves, really, if we can look at our parents and our grandparents as our past selves, then we can see what's inside them.
Yeah.
So imagine if you learned everything about them. They were in sports, they were in politics, they were revolutionaries, they were inventors, and you say, I don't want to do none of that.
Yeah.
You might have a harder time because now you have to go against everything that's in you.
Yeah.
Instead of studying a child and seeing what's in them to bring out the strengths, right, of who they are, we just put them all into one particular program and say, okay, if this happens to flow with your strengths, then you're going to be good at it. If it doesn't, then you're not going to be good at it. Then later on, you figure it out, but you have wasted your most formative years where you're malleable and you can develop that expertise and that mastery, because you can be an expert or a master as a child.
Yeah.
I think we reserve mastery for adults. Right?
Yeah.
Expertise for adults. But if you take something that someone is talented in, they can master it at a very young age.
Absolutely.
And we're not even grooming savants anymore. We're not even grooming masters anymore. We're saying, wait till you go to college, get out, get an education, get in the field, have a tenure, and then we'll call you an expert. That's crazy.
Well, we want to put a label on everyone so quickly.
Oh, well,
for comfort,
just the label society.
We are absolutely in the age of label. It's gone too far. But it's like
a sticker company, all these damn labels.
it really has just gotten completely wild, man. Like,
it's out of the band.
No. But I think for us, it's when I think about being in these structures, right, in these systems, I'm reminded of this conversation, man, I had with this guy yesterday. And it's a philanthropist, and they like to remain anonymous. But he was asking me a question because what he wanted to put his dollars against was a problem that we are looking at solving in my nonprofit Venture Noir, right? Which is all around how do we close the quality of life gap? How do we reimagine the middle class? So he was asking questions, and I was given just an answer on kind of here are some of our programs and how we address it. And he said, "Okay, Keenan, I'm clear. There's a nail and you have a hammer. And so that's what you're using your hammer to hit the nail." He said, "Can you just dream for a second and pretend you don't have the hammer?" And I just thought it was such a great question just to open up, because a lot of times we think within the limitations of what we've been conditioned.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we have all this information, but actually sit for just a second and just dream, just separate yourself. So a lot of times, and I took that to life, where we have problems that we face every day, right? We go through things, but we think we have to address them with the hammer that we have in hand. Where sometimes if you just pause a little bit, you might see that there's some other resources, some other tools out there, some other ways of addressing that situation. But I think we get so stuck in our ways, and it takes folks like you and the platforms that you do to shake our complacency, right? To get us to think differently, to get back to dreaming, to have that sense of wonder. I think about how you approach wealth building, right? And the platforms that you have and EYL has and what, Mike Rashid was talking about in terms of building wealth. What's great is it's not the formula that our parents had. You guys step aside, you pull back, right? Our parents weren't necessarily investing in the stock market, but yet our generation are the biggest investors in the stock market. Totally different, because that was a tool that had always been there. We just weren't using it. That wasn't for us. So we weren't even curious there. We've missed out on some of the wealth building because we thought this is what we do. We were buying into, okay, no, we're supposed to wake up, we go through the week, we go to church on Sunday, we want to save up money, work the job every day, get the house, picket fence. And it's like, man, you stuck in a 30-year mortgage. You're dependent on that for your wealth. Like, no, there's other ways to shake this up. And I think that's what we're in now. Like, let's challenge. Let's shake it up a little bit.
Right.
I don't want to be in no box.
Nah. No, I think that's the whole point of the time that we're living in. And if you really have to be grateful of the time that you're born. And you only get so much time on this planet Earth. Let's say max you go get 100 years, right? Depending on how you live. Average person go get from around 60, 70 maybe. You know, we downgrade that based on quality of living. You probably go hit a nice little 50 cap.
Yeah.
So let's say during that time, you have to recognize, all right, what is the time that I'm living in?
Yeah.
And what are the skill sets, mindset that is best suited for the time that I'm living in? And, you know, there's a certain sentiment, if you was to do an analysis of the overall society views and feelings about things. There's certain technological shifts that are in the air.
Yeah.
We live through a time where we're going through so much technological innovation. You have to understand, oh, that's the period of time that I'm in, right? So you would say, why is there blockchain? Why is there AI? Why is there robots, right? Why is there quantum computers? We obviously are in a technological shift, which means we're in this age of innovations, which that technology, which is an extension of self, also represents ideas about how we think of self.
Yes.
So what correlates with that? Individualism, right? We want to challenge the status quo. Usually during times of technological shifts, you see women's movements, right? You see movements in the booming 20s where you see women starts to fight for different rights. They reshape their role as man reshapes his world. So once you understand that, now you start to think in coordination with your time. And there's so many people who are thinking out of time, right? So their ideas don't work. You know this, somebody put out a product or something that's just not right for the time that we're in. It's not going to go anywhere, right? So in everything in life, if we were to be a little more analytical sometime and a little more mathematical with our approach, which I don't think Americans are, right? I think Americans are out of tune with time a lot. And we become reactionary, right? And I think we're out of tune with the math of time, to where we can analyze things and be like, all right, this is what I must do. And what that allows you to do is not to just accept where we are, but to understand the flow, right? So you can build things in accordance with that flow, because the past is already done, but the future, it belongs to whoever decides to plan for it and execute. That's where that's where the playground is the future. The past is all the lessons, but the future, you could be the biggest impactor in the future. Yes, there's people that got massive plans, billions and trillions of dollars in it. They got it written down, but guess what? It is not for certain.
That's it.
Nothing is for certain until it be. But when you believe in the imagination, plans, and visions of others, you actually help them bring it out.
All day.
So that's why I like what you said about you have to be careful using the tools, because these tools were dreamt up by somebody else, right? And they were designed in a way for you to use them. How about we just paint a blank canvas? Imagine a world that you want. Right? And then you start to build out from there. Nobody says you have to use the tools of the world, because these tools were built for a specific purpose, to build the world, right, that they have placed inside your mind in these schools of indoctrination for you to become a tool for their world. What about your world?
Define it, right? We have to be kings of our own world, if nothing else. Get back to dreaming, critical thinking, skills development, because there's this other thing that happens, and I hope we get into it in the next couple of episodes, but what do you do when shit happens? Right? Like we, you know, you and I, we talk about it, like we only trust people that have been in some form of a war, right? Like battle tested. And I think what was great about every single guest is there was a battle that they faced.
That's the common thread.
That was the common thread with all of them. They were all battle tested. So, you know, I want to touch on, you know, I'm a West Point guy, so I got to talk to some of my brothers that have been in some actual wars, right? You know, some literal wars. But it is, what do you do when shit happens? And that's where I'm like, do you have the ability to think critically? Do you have skills? Because that's part of your preparation. Don't sit back. Don't sit back. And I think that's where I hope we've encouraged people to do. Because I know that you've helped me and you've encouraged me to do that, and hopefully likewise. But I think that's what every guest, 100%. That's what I take away. It's like, man, let me go back in my bag. Like,
right.
Let me.
and that resilience. Because what we hear of so many people's stories is not one problem, multiples. and that constant resilience to persevere through multiple challenges. And some people are on their first challenge and it's hard for them to get over it.
Absolutely.
Now understanding that vision that you said you had is connected to 20 challenges.
Come on.
And you're going to have to get through each and every one of them like you love them in order to get to that vision.
And that is what people should realize here is that you can get through.
Mm-hmm.
You can get through that challenge.
Yeah.
Every person that came on this show got through their challenge. And that should be encouraging because I think that's what happens as we go from being children, right? And we come into adulthood, we started to face some challenges and we realize the difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
So once you dream, now to put it into action, you have to be courageous enough to face those challenges because you know they're coming. We're old enough and wise enough now to know that,
right? All
right, just because I put it down on paper, there's a reality.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, they freeze up and they don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, nah. That's why you got to make sure you have the resources,
mm-hmm.
you have the critical thinking, you started to develop the skills so that you can face that. Because when shit happens, what you do is you rely upon the skills.
That's
what happens when you play football, when you go to war.
Training.
That's why you train. That's why you drill, right? That's why you do these things that these well-formed and legacy organizations do. We have to do that for ourselves. Because who was talking about developing? That was Mike Rashid. Right? What's your regimen? What's your training? Right? You got it. What's your source of discipline that you have so that when shit happens, you can fall back on the skills, the preparation, the training.
Training is your automation flow.
Yeah.
Right? Like you got to think about it. And I keep using these AI references because that's the world we're in. But it's like when you train an AI model, it's so that it has these automated responses.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the same thing as a human being. When you train them, you have these automated responses of what to do in every different scenario that you're trained from. So when people are not trained and they're met with danger, they're met with a challenge, they don't know what to do, right? They unless they have this instinctual intelligence to happen to operate in the correct way, right? But if you're trained, then your training kicks in. And then it just takes over and you're like, oh, that boy good.
Yeah.
Yeah, experience is training. And this is what most of you have to understand. You can be trained in a very bad way, right? It's like fighters. They usually, or trainers usually want somebody who has no training. So you got a blank canvas.
Yeah.
Otherwise you have to rewire on top of what you think you know. So you have to then take a survey of self and ask, what is my training? Is it good or bad? Because you may have been trained badly to handle and respond to challenges. And then other people are trained to see it in a different perspective. Like, oh, this just lets me know that there's growth. It's like a child I used to get knee pains when I was young because I was going through growth spurts. But it's like, I was happy because I knew that I was growing. You know what I'm saying? I knew I wasn't about to be short.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'd rather deal with this knee pain rather than not have it and be, you know what I mean, a short king my whole life. No disrespect to the short kings out there. You know what I mean? The Napoleons of the world, you know, but I happen to be one of the Hannibal Barkers, you know. I happen to got a little tall, dark, and handsome, you know. And that brings me to my next point, right? Because you have to know your assets.
The tall, dark, and handsome transition is crazy.
Well, yeah, you know, you gotta self-awareness is key in this whole thing we call life. I know I'm tall, dark, and handsome. But what does that mean if I'm not intelligent? What does that mean if I'm not strategic?
Yeah.
All of these other things that I am, I've trained myself.
Yeah.
Honestly, that stuff I don't care about because that's automated. That's what God gave me. He just, tall, dark, handsome. You got that. So now that's your baseline.
Yeah.
But everything, the communication skills, leadership skills, project management skills, my visionary skills, right? You know, learning the brand to market, learning science, psychology, thought leadership, becoming an author, all of these other development of skills, challenges, learning technology in all these different ways. All of that I've trained myself on.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the things I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Right? So the exterior view ain't it. It's the inner view that then I can exude, right? That I'm happy of the world. So you're born with a level of assets, or you can be born with a level of deficits and liabilities. I was born in a family to where we had a lot of siblings and we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? So that's automatic challenges. I was born with adverse childhood experiences that rank very high to say that I'll be in jail, dead with disease, or some other unfortunate situation, depressed or stressed. So those are things that against. So I stack up assets, liabilities, and my goal is to stack up more that outweigh.
Yeah.
So now I'm wealthy, right? And a lot of people don't understand, like, the wealth of like money as assets, that's a byproduct of how you stack your real assets and liabilities.
Yeah. I think too, what you make me really think of is, as we think about the tools, and I know you're talking about AI, and there's a lot of fear with AI. That's why it's a great topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we have to keep in mind is use the tools, don't be dependent on the tools. Right. There's this level of dependency that I'm starting to see people move with.
Yes, sad to
right.
me.
And that's why there's fear, because now it's like, if you were dependent on a tool and it goes away, you're trying to figure out what are you left with? Like, what the tools can't do is think critically.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they can't communicate.
Mm-hmm.
They can't sell, right?
Yeah.
They can enhance, they can help you do better, but like there's these fundamental skills. And I tell you, man, I look a lot at my niece and nephew, particularly just because I'm still on that border, right? I was the pre-computer generation, right? But it flipped, right? While I was still developing. So I can remember both sides. Where if I look at my niece and nephew, they are kids, right? So all they know is the technology, and there's a dependence on it. So sometimes I like to just take it away just to see, right? Like, I want you to have a conversation with me. Sell me on it.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think. Let me see your comprehension. So I think we have to make sure that we're constantly training and developing and building our skills and not becoming so dependent on things. But use them, just don't be dependent on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the goal is to become a superhuman.
That's it.
And if we think the tools make us superhuman and they don't, right? And I think that's the problem. It's like, once you become dependent on things outside yourself, right, you decrease your own power.
That's it.
Self-reliability, right? It's like, it's like getting a robotic arm and all of a sudden you can lift 500 pounds.
Yeah.
You're stronger. The tools are stronger. But if we take away that tool and you disconnect it and we put your regular arm on, you back to regular strength. And every single day, people are not really getting stronger. The tools are getting stronger.
Man, we about to get into a nasty debate. Don't cancel us now, because this is where the gun debate goes for me. Right? Like, I look at people with guns and I'm like, can you fight?
Come on, cowboy.
Can you fight? Like,
what are you saying, Friday? You gotta learn how to use these.
So sometimes it's like this dependency, because when you are so dependent on it, you're naturally insecure because you know that without that, you are weak.
Right.
There's a deficiency.
Right.
So it's like,
and you're going to use it more because you have it, not because you need it.
Right. So it's like, guys, these things are meant to be enhancments to build upon what we have.
Come on now.
Right?
If you get a BBL, listen.
There's another one.
It's an enhancement. That first of all, you didn't need it. You were beautiful at first, but what now? You become dependent on people seeing that as part of your value. So you have to take every picture and you have to make sure that's in it, because you have now believed that this is a part of your value.
Well, you're insecure.
Yes,
it naturally makes you insecure, and I think that is what the battle is right now. We are fighting insecurity,
and I get it, because like as we talk about AI, it's a commodity of intelligence. So now you're insecure about your own intelligence, and you created these tools that are supposed to replicate intelligence. And you say, well, I'm not even that smart. And you create something smarter than me. Well, if you develop yourself, and now you need to develop a different type of intelligence, creative intelligence, and the intelligence of utility, essentially, for me, because it's how you use things. It's not the what.
Don't replace yourself. Like, if you want to use the technology to be faster, to be more efficient, love it.
Yeah.
But don't replace yourself.
Nah, because you're not sharpening. And that's my whole thing with these tools. I don't like people become over dependent. It's like, because you're killing the human spirit and you're no longer sharpening at some point in time. Now you can't think. Now I need to think of a caption. ChatGPT, tell me what to say. And they're like, if you couldn't think of a caption, like, first of all, just stop. Think about where you are as a human being, where you can't think of 150 characters to say to match incongruent with something. Now you're afraid because this tool can do it instantly. My brain, I want to constantly be able to. So sometimes I'll stop myself like, wait, Is it the fact that I couldn't come up with it?
Yeah.
Or I decided not to use my mind, right? Because now I feel like I have an alternative. So instead of artificial, it's becoming alternative intelligence, right? To where they become dependent systems.
Yeah.
To where it's like, I don't need to depend on my analytical brain, my neocortex development. So your brain stops developing and it creates this dependent relationship. Why do I need to store things in my memory when you can store them in your phone, right? Why do I need to calculate when you have a calculator,
Yeah.
right? Why do I need to have a perceptual observation when you can go get your perception from somebody else's podcast, right? So instead of you developing and enhancing yourself intrinsically, you start trying to only enhance yourself from extensive, or that's not the exterior ways.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge that human beings are going to have, is having great tools, right? But not becoming reliant on them.
Yeah, I am. This is what I'm a big believer on. I love being around confident people.
Mm-hmm.
And if something makes you
Talk about it.
more confident, I love it. But if the end result is it actually makes you less confident or more insecure, I have a problem with it, right? So if you want to put makeup on to enhance your beauty, right? Great. But if now you got to wake up an hour before your significant other to put makeup on, because see, now I have, you can't
get that rollover and glow smile.
So now it's actually made you insecure.
Yeah.
Right. So now I don't like that tool.
Yeah. Because confidence is the ability to hold on to truth. And
that
you know
is
what the truth is.
We have to hold on to that. Like, and we are all, like, children are born confident.
You gotta
born with everything.
You know, it's funny that you're saying this, because this the problem. This is
there's your camera right there.
Problem we got. People do not know how to be ugly and confident.
They know how to be ugly, though.
Yeah. Well, they don't even know how to properly be ugly anymore. Because, see, being beautiful and confident, that's different. That's like having the flyest clothes on. You got all the makeup on. You got all the jewelry on. Your haircut is perfect. Everything is tailored to a T. That's not real confidence. You know what I'm saying? Can you walk in that same place with a tattered t-shirt on, you know what I mean, no makeup, and still feel the same?
See, I would articulate it as, can you be naked and confident?
That's what I'm talking about, that ugly confidence.
Right, but that ain't ugly. It's you should feel.
Well, I'm just mean
great.
Like, without having to, strip, without having to have all these additions. Right? These extensions. That's what they are. They're extensions. To where, do you still feel the same? And if you don't have that, if you can't walk in a world where everything doesn't need to be a filter, it doesn't need to be an illusion, doesn't need to be this picture perfect-esque thing, then that ain't real confidence.
See, and that is where, look, shit is going to happen. Things aren't going to go the way that you planned them to be. So if you are so reliant on that, on your regimen, on all these things, when a variable comes in, it rattles you to your ground. And you fall apart and you crumble. I don't want to see people crumble.
Nah.
We got to have the confidence so that you can adjust when shit inevitably happens.
Listen, I can walk in a room, black t-shirt on, regular pants, regular hat, take the jewelry off, right? And keep the muscles. I walk in there. I don't care if it's a dude in there with 36 chains on, you know what I'm saying? And he walking a Black Panther. The God still is going to be able to compete at a heavy level. Matter of fact, I'm going to make him look goofy. You know what I'm saying? The lady's going to be like, why did he need all of that? And he's still this godly and fine.
Listen,
that's different. See,
that's how you're supposed to feel.
That's true confidence.
That's how
you might have some experience, you know, I don't know, y'all know your younger years, you know, of your experience with women and how
I'm out the game now.
See, I know you out the game, but we was all in the game at some point. You had to be in the game to be out the game.
I played at the highest level.
Even in the game.
I played at the highest level, like all things.
You are a very confident person, first of all, and the law. See, this is my thing. There's a law of superior confidence. Real. We talk about the law of attraction. That's great. They created up a whole category called con man because it's so powerful that when you're a confident self, you can literally almost do anything. Nigerians are so confident. They can sell you in airports. that don't exist. You know the level of confidence you must have
to do that.
Right? Like, you have to understand, especially when you can match confidence with truth, it's superior.
Yeah. And see, that is exactly, to me, now we're starting to hone in on what I think is the end result of watching this platform, right? Because we've been thinking about this, and you guys, you have to know, sometimes we do things, and Keys and I, we put stuff into action, right? We want to execute. We don't like to stay in idea stage, but that means sometimes we're refining, right? And I've been thinking a lot about what is the takeaway from Manifest House? What are you going to be left with, right? So after you watch 1 episode, 2 episodes, 8 episodes, 25 episodes, whatever it ends up being, what are you left with? And I think now we're tailoring into it, right? It's that you should find your confidence, because what you get a chance to see is interact and watch folks that have been through wars and trials, but there's something that you can relate to, because we're all just regular people at the end of the day. There's a story that you can relate to with Style or with Mike. And when you see yourself in that and you've seen that they've gone through fires, they've gone through wars, and they remain confident, to me, I hope that you walk away with that you too are also confident. Right. And you start to refine and sharpen those skills, because that's what I think we've been missing, man, with a lot of the world. So many people are finding themselves insecure, doubting themselves, right? They're depressed. And a lot of these things because they don't feel like they have control anymore. They don't feel capable.
Yeah.
And what the reality is we're all extremely capable. Like, we are all capable beings, and like we need to get back to that.
Yeah, I think that if we had a more confident world, it would delete a lot of industries.
Yep.
You know, the predatory nature of companies to prey upon insecurities and create whole campaigns around it just to sell you a product is the most relevant thing to study right now, because they're literally hacking, and it's constantly hacking on your insecurities.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a nature of motivating someone to do it, and motivation is definitely a powerful force, but that only is when someone wants to do it.
Yes.
And then manipulation is when a person doesn't want to do something. And so you have to find a clever way to get them to then do that thing. And so that requires coercion, right? Figuring out a way to get that done. It's more powerful when it is aligned with someone's, ideology. It's more powerful when it's aligned with someone's values, dreams, goals, wants, and desires for themselves. But we are constantly hacked every single day.
Yeah.
We are a product once we use social media. Then that's what you have to understand. As soon as you log on, you are a product that has to now fight this machine that is trying to channel and hack your insecurities to figure out which way to flow you in a world of commercial intelligence that's trying to figure out, how do I get this person dollar out their pocket and hack their mind to flow in this direction? Well, so we're attention farmed all day long.
Well, it's what is this economy that we have in the U.S., right? It's a consumption-based economy. So the system, right? The ecosystem is designed to have you consume. And what do we look at when we see great salesmen? Confidence. So you got to be mindful of that, right? And so all of us, like, there should be something that you're trying to sell.
Right.
Every day.
And the first thing you should sell is yourself. And that's why it's always the part of yourself that you sell, it's not your soul.
Yeah. It don't have to be OnlyFans either.
You sell your values. Yeah. You sell your values to the world, right? Because I believe the best thing a person has to give to the world first is their values. This is what I believe in. You believe in morality. You believe in family, right? You believe in righteousness or whatever it may be, self-respect. Sell your values to the world. Because what's going to happen is the people who buy them are the people who are aligned with them. And those are the people that's your tribe. Those are the people that's your family, that's your community. If you are somebody that's building a community, first layer is sell your values. Those people that align with you ideologically, they're going to rock with you for a very long time through ups and downs, because you also don't want to build a fickle community, right? If you're selling them something that's completely disconnected with their values, it's easier for them to disconnect. Right. But the deeper layer is an ideological connection of values that you're selling. Say, this is what I believe in. Who believes in it too? And they like, bro, I believe in that. Yeah. I'm aligned with your conservative values or your traditional values or your progressive values. I'm aligned with your spiritual thinking. I'm aligned with the way you think about capitalism in this world that we're going into, whatever it may be. those are the people that you can always go back to that foundation, even if things get rocky and they shift over, it's going to be hard for people to now disconnect from you because it ain't everybody in the world not aligned with their values.
Yes, sir.
You build relationship off values, whether it's a sexual relationship that you're in. If the values are there, even when the sex disappears, it's going to be hard to disconnect because this person is aligned with your values.
Yeah.
But the problem is that people try to skip the values, right? And then they trying to sell a product and trying to sell a service. And it's like, bro, it's not even the first layer of connection.
Well, you don't even believe it, right? So when it's nonsense, but iron sharpens iron. That's why, be mindful of the energy you're putting out in the world, and I think that's where we have to create. We have to constantly be putting deposits out there. We have to constantly sell to reinforce our confidence and shape it. I think too many times, again, we're trying to sit back and just consume.
Yeah.
And you find yourself, people are very depressed when they just sit there and all they're doing is buying stuff. You watch them. It's a vicious cycle that creates poverty, right? Because you always feel like you need something else.
Come on, now
So
you go.
just
Why are you
consume it,
trying to
consume
attack
it,
the
consume it.
ladies, man?
No, this is the fellas, right? And I can be honest, this is even me. Listen,
We got a lady in the room.
I got a closet with 400 shoes. I can tell you, when I'm buying a whole bunch of shoes, I'm not in a great spot.
It's a real thing. When it's retail therapy.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying? But I mean that in the sense that, I think, women are the biggest consumers. So that's why I said that, right?
You know who the biggest consumer is? I'm gonna give you this one.
I just said it.
No. But it's not just women, it's moms.
Okay, niche.
There's a very specific niche.
Yeah.
She is the biggest consumer. Yeah. And when you look at your mom or you talk to your mom or you have a lady that ends up becoming a mother, so shout out to my lady, they're in a very vulnerable state. There's so many things they're worried about, so much fear, so much insecurity. Consume. Companies have preyed upon that.
Exactly, yeah. 100%.
So you got to be very, very mindful when you're in a heavily consumption-based state. You might need to recalibrate.
I love that because, if you do the studies and marketing companies hire neuroscientists to consult them, right? And one of the studies that came out was that they target pregnant women, right? Because they're trying to create their next generation of consumers. So if we target you in the womb, right? You're buying you eating Cheez-Its, the baby takes the Cheez-Its, he gets out, he's crying for the Cheez-Its, you got to buy the Cheez-Its. It creates a consumer cycle. They're informing that basket now of what you're buying when you're in that grocery store, right? And so they've shown where there's literal marketing campaigns to the pregnant mothers so that you now have this safety in this next generation of consumers, because when they're born, you're now fighting with these other brands for that attention. So they're going after mothers that are pregnant, mothers that have these infants, so that when you grow up, your taste level is informed by your previous programming. So we're not really thinking about that, but you think about the things that you like as an adult, they were informed from when you were a child. Yeah. And you may think that, I just have this, I just like this, or I just like that. That was programmed into you to like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of programming. And it's tough, right? We're the most, there has never been more marketing and advertising in history.
And not to cut your wisdom, but let's say you can be lactose intolerant, but programmed to like dairy. And you love something that's bad for you.
Yeah.
And that's the essence of what I'm talking about.
Well, that makes you sick.
And then when you learn that you're lactose intolerant, some people still don't want to change.
Yeah.
So, when you learn self, will you change your taste for things that are good for you? Or will you continue to consume the things that are bad for you? And the cognitive dissonance that people have to change behavior, right, is that hardwired part of them that they don't want to change because they feel like that is who they are.
Yeah. I think all of this, it stems and it comes down to the belief in oneself, right? And I think when we look at this, and as we talk about Manifest House and every guest, every viewer, it's knowing that you are enough.
Yeah.
Like you are good enough. And your dreams matter, right? What you feel, your energy, the world wants, right? We were created because we have value. And our job is to understand that value and give it to the world. That's actually the whole journey. So everyone, you have something.
Yeah.
Sit back, dream, manifest it, and bring it to the world because the world wants it. needs it and you were here for it.
Right.
So that is what this is about. I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
I'm excited. So we got more episodes.
I would say last thing is appreciate your failures. That's one thing I loved about everybody, because on the journey to success, like we called it challenges, but it's like there's going to be these rough spots where you go through and it might break you. But that breaking is breaking the weak parts of you, not the strong. It's breaking and reshaping you to become that version of yourself that you need. I look at everything as happening with meaning. You know what I mean? That bad transaction that happened, partnership that happened, that failed product, whatever it may have been, was all the breaking that I need to reshape me into the version that I really want to get to my ultimate self.
That's it.
Because sometimes I can have a vision that's too cheap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's not even worthy of my time.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes God will smite me down to be like, how dare you dream that weak?
Yeah, it's got to scare you. You know, your dreams should scare you a little bit. It was funny, man. I got to give a shout out to my old barber, man, brother Uke, man, in New York. And we were sitting there talking, and he said, you know what anxiety is? I'm like, what is anxiety? He's like, it's just the bitch and the old you. You know, so it's like this reminder that, you know, you have things that in a moment in time that did break you, right? That crumbled you to your soul. Wisdom. Yeah, but a lot of times what happens is people reach that roadblock and it was so difficult and it crushed them that they stopped trying. But it's, to your point, you've now been prepared, right? That breaking, it's now shaped you. Now you're different because you've gone through that. Now you're stronger. You're fortified, right? You had to rebuild. So now you really should try again because you can address it. But that anxiety you're starting to feel, that was the old you. And that old you couldn't handle it.
And you'll quit when you most prepared for the next leg of the journey.
Yeah. It's like we stop it too short. It's like, no, we're fortified now.
Yeah.
That anxiety, let that go. That's just the bitch and the old you.
My brother Steve told me, he said, you know, sometimes when you turbulence is a sign you flying high. You know what I'm talking about?
Come on, Steve.
So when you flying high and you high level, it's supposed to be turbulence.
Yeah.
Now you've reached a new atmosphere and there's new atmospheric conditions. And now you have to learn how to fly through that turbulence in order to get to your destination.
That's it.
And then some people, they will lower, right, they heights and they altitude, but they don't want to go to that turbulence. They say, nah, I don't feel like dealing with all that.
And a lot of times when you're in turbulence, you got to go higher. Don't stay in
it. To get above it. You might, now
you got to go above it.
You got caught in this little wind stream. Go higher. Go higher.
Increase
it's like
the altitude.
Trying to leave the Earth's atmosphere. You're going to get so much resistance, right? That it forms a plasma ring around you. And that's the ring of fire, the same ring of fire that happens when a woman is giving birth to a child. Yeah. But if you stop at that resistance, then the reward doesn't come at the end. And right after that is this moment of calm.
And that's the thing, right? And I love this analogy, and shout out to Steve, brother. This is deep.
Not Steve Stout, Steve Jones.
No, we Steve Jones is the only Steve we talk about. But what I love about this though is it's such a good analogy, because what happens is all of us as we're climbing, you will hit turbulence. And you have two choices now, right? Because what you don't want to do is stay in the turbulence. Right. So you got to adjust the altitude.
Yeah.
You're either going to go higher or you're going to go lower.
Right.
Too many people are going lower.
Right.
And if you go lower, you might get out of the turbulence. But now what happens is you've conditioned yourself. You'll never go higher. Because as soon as you get the turbulence, your reaction is to go lower.
Right.
You keep adjusting down.
Right.
What you have to do is then push. You got to go up.
Right. And who do you want? Who do you want on your side during that time you're going through turbulence? Because this is important. Because you can have a voice that's speaking to the bitch in you. Man, go on now. You ain't doing enough. You did enough, man. Go ahead, relax. You don't need to have all that pressure. Go ahead. You did enough. You doing enough. Then you got that person, man. Push through. You got that David Goggins that's telling you, get your bitch ass up. Go a little higher. I don't want to hear that. Did your nuts drop this morning? Keep on going. Oh, you think you got enough money? You ain't got nothing. You a turd. So it's like some people, they prefer that soft voice that's going to allow them to quit and go down. There's some people prefer inspire me. That's it. And when you around people that's going through that, man, be the David Goggins in their life.
Come on.
You know what
Come
I'm
on.
saying? Be the David Goggins that's going to like really empower them with that willfulness to go do more and more. I
Yeah.
hate when you got them soft, nasty, weak ones around you that's like, oh, you did enough already. You just be grateful. No, I want to step. Obviously, I'm on this journey to go higher. I'm on this journey to reach my zenith and my fullest potential. Do not ever tell me to be satisfied. Tell me to keep going.
Especially when I'm on a journey to find out what I'm really made of.
Come on,
what
man.
I'm really capable of.
Come on.
That's all it's about.
Punch you in your mouth playing with me
push
like
through,
that.
Push through. We're capable of so much more. Well, brother, with that one,
Yeah.
first season wrapped up.
Yes, sir.
Come on now. We manifested.
Yeah, we in the house, man.
Manifest house, y'all. We probably gonna have a different location, but you know what I mean? Y'all gonna see.
Yeah.
Because we grown. We elevate.
Yeah, tap in. We about to manifest a new house.
All right. My
Tap
brother.
in.
My brother. Come on. Yes, sir.
No, he black. He caught that real quick.
This is about the playground for your dreams. Because it's not something that you can give up.
Manifest house. Manifest house. Manifest house. Manifest house.